Hello, Stephan here with Liquidity with a brief history of the English language.
Liquidity.
Ironically, the origins of the English language are not to be found in England, but in northwestern Germany, or what is today northwestern Germany, perhaps parts of the Netherlands, and also possibly part of Denmark, actually. In the 5th century, as the Western Roman Empire crumbled, Germanic tribes in particular, but also some other groups of people and some other tribes, started to pour into Western Europe. The Anglo-Saxons and Jutes, three distinct tribes that were known to live in that region of what is today northwestern Germany, came to Britain in the 5th century, eventually built colonies and established themselves. I won't say much about the Jutes because there's very little known about them, and also they're not referred to quite as often. So I'm going to refer to these invaders as Anglo-Saxons, Angles and Saxons, and their language is actually known as Anglo-Saxon or Old English. So this is the beginning of the Old English period. When the Angles and Saxons and Jutes came to what is today southern England, that area was already quite well populated by Romanized Celtic people for the most part, and also people who had come from all over the Roman Empire. Today, we also know that there were people for many millennia before even the Celtic people had arrived in the British Isles. So the monuments of Stonehenge in southern England or the monument of Newgrange in Ireland bear testaments to very sophisticated societies that existed well before Celtic or Indo-European people came to the British Isles. So the Angles and Saxons established themselves, especially in what is today England, in places like East Anglia, Essex, Sussex, Wessex, and even the very name of England, which some people even today pronounce England, bear testament to the Angles and Saxons who settled there in the 5th and 6th centuries. Beginning in the 8th century, when the Angles and the Saxons were already Christianized and part of the quote-unquote civilized world, Viking raiders from Scandinavia came and started first plundering and then eventually started building colonies themselves all along the coastline of the British Isles, in particular in what is today northern England and southern Scotland. These Scandinavian invaders and settlers brought with them their own language, obviously, Old Norse, and Old Norse and Anglo-Saxon were fairly closely related. They were not closely enough related for people to easily understand each other, but close enough that with a little bit of training, with a little bit of practice, you could start listening yourself into those two languages. The grammars of Old Norse and Old English were much more complicated than what we see today in English. A lot more conjugations, a lot more inflections. We had case structures for both of these languages. So one of the theories was, as these Old Norse speakers and Anglo-Saxon speakers mingled and intermarried and traded with each other, they actually created dialects that included elements from both, but with a simplified grammar, but an extended vocabulary. The year 1066 marks the beginning of the Middle English period. Something very important happened. William the Conqueror, or William the Duke of Normandy, conquered England. He came to England and was very successful to beat the English armies, and little by little conquered very, very large parts of the British Isles. William the Conqueror was a descendant of Norse people, but he did not speak a Norse language. He spoke Norman French, which is basically an old French dialect based mostly on Latin, which is really a Latin vernacular, a local Latin vernacular that included a couple of words from Scandinavian languages, but for the most part, they spoke a French dialect. And they brought the French language with them to England, and for several centuries, at the royal court, the language to be spoken was actually French, or what was French back then. The Normans are the reason why today in English people don't eat cow meat but beef, or not pig meat but pork, or not sheep meat but mutton. Mutton, by the way, very interestingly, has its origin in a Celtic word from the old Gauls, from France, the Celtic people that probably even today form the base population of modern-day France. The Middle English period lasted roughly from 1066 up until somewhere between 1450 and 1500. You can imagine that average people during that time period wouldn't have just changed completely how they talked from one day to the next, but the better connected you were, the more educated you were, the more you were part of the powerful Norman elite, the more likely you would include French terms in your everyday vernacular, whereas the vast majority of common people, probably for several centuries, continue to speak, for the most part, their Anglo-Saxon, Old Norse dialect mishmashes, and they would just gradually, little by little, include more and more French words. And by the 15th century, the vast majority of people would have included a lot of these French and Latin terms in the English language, words that we use today. For instance, we can say, are you curious or are you nosy? So we have often a French or a Latinate term for a word and also a Germanic term. Sometimes we have several terms, both Latinate and also Germanic, maybe an Old Norse term and an Anglo-Saxon term. The late 15th century marks the beginning of the modern English period. So when we talk about English as spoken by Henry VIII or Elizabeth I, or then later Shakespeare and many, many other well-known writers during that time period, that's not Old English, that's modern English, early modern English. What sets modern English apart from Middle English is, for the most part, pronunciation. This is the time period of the Great Vowel Shift. That started, of course, in the Greater London area, in the center of power, in that southeastern parcel of England where most of the political and academic power sits, and then gradually spread out. So people would start to pronounce the letter A like we are pronouncing it today in English, instead of an A as it would have been pronounced before that, or the letter I. Nobody pronounces the letter I like an I except for English speakers. In the rest of the world, everybody pronounces it E, which is what the Romans pronounced it like, right? It's a Latin letter. For more information about vowels and why English is so different and how English is so different from other languages that use the Latin alphabet, please watch my video, Why You Should Care About Diphthongs. Beginning with the Middle Ages, during the Renaissance period, and then later during the era of Enlightenment, English also started to include more and more pure Latin words and also Greek words, because the lingua franca of diplomats and of academics and of clergy was Latin. People all over Europe corresponded with each other in Latin. Everything was written in Latin, and in that Latin you also had a healthy dose of Greek vocabulary. English today is a very important language. It's a very commonly used language, and that is in large part because of the extent of the British Empire for a very long time, but also because of the power that the United States of America yields, and many of the other countries that use English as their first language. One of the exciting things about English is that it keeps absorbing vocabulary from all over the world. So not only do other people speak English, but English speakers speak words, at least, from many, many different cultures. Let me read you a list of a few words that are not of Norse, Anglo-Saxon, Latin, or Greek origin that come from other languages that English absorbed. Not only English, but other languages as well. So here it goes. Alcohol, algebra, chocolate, pajamas, bangles, avatar, juggernaut, banjo, cola, coffee, jazz, voodoo, zombie, hurricane, zero. Those are just a few words that English absorbed like a sponge, and it keeps absorbing. And of course, English keeps evolving. This is the exciting thing about English. You have all these different varieties of English. So for instance, if an American goes to Australia and listens to people talk to each other the way that Australians talk amongst themselves, you might have trouble understanding things just because certain terms are not used in America that are used in Australia. And also the pronunciation is quite different. This is the exciting thing about English. It keeps evolving, it keeps changing, it keeps becoming a richer and richer language, and there are many, many, many people who speak it as a second functional language. Just think about the millions of people from India who speak English on a regular basis. That's not their native language. They may actually speak one or several native languages, and in addition to that, they also speak English fluently. That's not just true for people from India. This is just a good example. Obviously, there are many, many countries that is true for. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was somewhat helpful. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like and check out my other videos, especially the one about the diphthongs. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing. See if you like my videos. See if this is something you want to be bugged with. Yes, turn on notifications if you would like to see when I publish something new, and if you're interested. Take care. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.